Okay, so we have few people on the phone and we have few people on the Hangout.
So it's 7:07, Vinita. Do you want to get started or do you want to give another minute?
No, we should get started. There's a lot of stuff we need to cover. So,
Okay.
welcome to the second session. I'm not sure how many people got a chance to read the second chapter. Um, I wanted to first actually take a step back and give you guys a summary of what the Gita is about. You know, I think Seema has sent a link of the second chapter of my book, which is my first book, and it's basically as the same theme as the Gita. So I wanted to use this, and I'm going to plunge in directly into the class because we are about 8 minutes late. So you know, I had said in the first class that the chapter 2 is the summary of the entire Gita. The Gita itself is the culmination or the synthesis of the entire Vedic philosophy or all the philosophies in Sanatan Dharma. So let me start with the word Sanatan Dharma because this is what everything is based on. So the name for Hinduism is a foreign term, but the name for this universal philosophy is Sanatan Dharma. And Dharma is, you can think of it as natural laws of nature. And Dharma you can equate with something like science, you know, like it's very hard to say, okay, what is Dharma really? And if you want to understand what Dharma is, you can think of it as science. See, science, the laws of physics are universal. The laws exist in the entire universe, right? So, like the law of gravity, the law of motion, you know, that galaxies turn in a counterclockwise motion. All of these laws that the scientists keep discovering every day, they don't pertain to a particular nationality or of the person who discovered it. They are universal. So, like that, the the principles of nature that were discovered by these enlightened rishis, and you can think of these enlightened people, the rishis, as the scientists, you know, and they were you know, worldwide. It's you know, Sanatan Dharma doesn't say that you only have to belong to India or something like that. It's a conglomerate. It's like a conglomerate of all inputs, truthful inputs from all masters, from all saints, from all enlightened beings, or you know. So it's not like, you know, it's one input and one book. It's sort of bringing together the truthful inputs from all of these masters, which you can think of as like scientists. You know, if a scientist discovers something new or uh, life changing, everything is incorporated into the library of science. So like that is what Sanatan Dharma is. It's basically these enlightened masters who have discovered these truths, have all of these explorations and realizations have been put together under the term of dharma. Okay, and so you can think of dharma as like sciences. These are the laws of nature. And I was talking in the last class that, you know, this chapter will talk about karma yoga, and that how karma has to be in sync with dharma. So a large part of the Vedic scriptures and all these books that we think comprise of the Vedic literature is talking with two topics. One is dharma and one is Brahman, the eternal consciousness. Okay, so
Vinita,
yeah.
can I interrupt you? I am just getting inputs from some people that they can't hear you.
Hear me? Oh,
Are you dialed in and are you close to the speakerphone?
yeah.
Okay.
1 second. It should be.
Her voice is very clear on the Hangout.
On the Hangout, yes, but if you're on the bridge line only, then it's not clear.
The bridge line. Okay, the phone is right next to
Are you
me.
dialed in? Because since you you are speaking, it's important that you are also dialed in.
Let me. Okay, can you hear me on the phone? Okay. Let me see if I can. I'll put it closer. Hopefully that'll be better. I don't want to put it on speaker because otherwise. Is this okay? Okay, let me see what I can do. So let me go back to the summary, okay? So this is very important. If you get this, you'll get the entire Gita and you'll get the Vedic philosophy. So let me start out by saying that the reason why we study this is that, when we take human birth, there's always misery and suffering, and it's sort of the evolution of mankind of how do we overcome this suffering or these problems or this misery. Okay, so there are three types of people who come and read the Gita or the Vedas, and that's what Sri Krishna said in one of the chapters. Is one of those type of people is the people who want to get rid of these problems and misery. That's one type of people who want to read about the Gita and the Vedas or any spirituality or religion. The second category of people who want to learn knowledge is those who want to gain something. So the first category is one who want to get rid of problems. The second category is who want to gain something like health, wealth, some desire, material desire. And the third category are those who are sincere seekers of truth. So these categories are the three categories of people who come to spirituality or to religion to find out the truth and the solutions to life, right? So the Gita is like a solutions manual to life. And so are the Vedas or the Bible or the Quran or any of these texts. They are basically, how do I live my life? How do I solve the problems of everyday life, whether it's health related or job related or relationship related? So the problem definition, which was the first chapter of the Gita, which Arjun basically defined for as a summary for all people, the problem definition is that there is misery in life, right? There is misery, there's problems, and there are three types of problems. One can be from health. That's the first category of problems. The second category is related to finances, whether it's money, it's job, it's investments. So it's related to wealth. So health, wealth. And the third is with relationships or with children. So these are the three categories of problems. So anything that you have in life which is a problem, you can put in one of these three baskets, broadly speaking. And this is the problem definition, right? And most people do not know what is the cause of these problems. They know they have these problems, but they don't understand, why are these problems caused. And when you know the cause, then you can go about finding a solution. Just like at work, when you learn these seminars where you go into problem solving. I took a seminar at work. The first thing when you go to problem solving is that you need to define the problem statement. Then you need to figure out what is the cause before you go to the solution. And so that is why this methodology in the Vedic scriptures is very scientific or modern. What modern people have also discovered is they lay the problem statement, they then talk about the cause before they go to the solution. So the cause for this problem, the miseries and problems that we have in life, the number one cause, the original cause or the original sin that is called in the Bible is ignorance. Okay, that's the primary cause, the primal cause. I won't go into detail here, but the Gita will go into the detail of this cause, which is ignorance. Okay, so just take it for that. Otherwise, I can spend an hour just talking about ignorance. The second cause is the disturbed and restless mind. And the third cause is negativity or impurities. So these impurities are like cravings, aversions, desires, anger, greed, delusion, jealousy, envy, fear, and ego, right? So there are all these different distortions or vices that we have. So broadly speaking, impurities is the vices that we have, that the limitations that we have, or the negative emotions that we have, or the wrong thinking that we have. Okay, so very simply put, it is wrong thinking and negative feelings. You can think of impurities like that. The disturbed and restless mind was the second one, and the original cause is ignorance. So these are the three causes for our problems and miseries. Okay. In Sanskrit terms, the ignorance is called the avaran, or the veil of ignorance. The disturbed mind is called vikshep, and the impurities is called mal. So you can think of this as like muddy, turbulent water. Okay, so the mud in the water is the impurities. The turbulence on the surface of the water is the disturbed mind. And the ignorance is when, because of this, you cannot see your reflection, your true nature. You're ignorant of your true nature and the depth of your being. So those are the three causes, and you can, when you use this comparison to this muddy, turbulent water, you'll understand how the Gita and the Vedas go step by step to remove these three blocks of ignorance, the disturbed mind, and negativity or impurities. Then now that you know the cause, now you can go to the solution, the methodology for the solution. So the methodology for the solution in the Vedic approach, which is the Bhagavad Gita as well, is that you start with the Karma Yoga, and the Karma Yoga is what I defined last time, is when you act in accordance with dharma, is the Karma Yoga. Okay? So, Karma Yoga now in the second chapter that we go into, it'll go into a lot of wordings where it'll say you need to have a calm, clear, and stable mind and act from there. Act from a calm mind, from a stable mind, from a centered mind. And when action comes from a calm and clear mind, then there is skill in action. When you act from a very disturbed mind or desire-oriented mind, your actions will be imperfect. So basically, when we act from, we do not act from desires for or a greed for the results of our action. When we do our 100% without desiring certain results, and we act according to the natural principles of nature, then there is no consequences. Okay, so there are many aspects to Karma Yoga, and the next three chapters, chapter 3, 4, and 5, will go into a great depth about Karma Yoga. Okay, so I just wanted to also introduce another thing here before we get into the next section of the verses of the Gita, because it'll dive into so much of this terminology that you need to understand, like before we get into it. See, the Vedic definition of existence, of a person's existence, is multiple layers. We exist in multiple layers, So there are, broadly speaking, 5 categories of our existence. The outermost category is your body. Your body is the gross body. Okay, that is your outermost level of existence, and which includes your, the organs of the senses, your eyes, your ears, your tongue, for the 5 organs, the 5 senses. That is your body level. The next level of existence is the subtle level, which starts with the breath. Okay, the breath is the link between the outer body and the inner mind. So the subtle body includes the breath. the senses of perception, which basically is the first level of your mind, the perception of in the mind. The other part of the subtle body is the thoughts, okay? The thoughts, which are basically, you can classify that as the mind, okay? Then above that is the intellect, okay? This is very important to understand how the intellect is higher than the mind. Intellect meaning your logic, your reasoning, the thinking of this is right or wrong. All of that is incorporated in the intellect. And here in this section that we're going into, it'll talk a lot about how the mind should be controlled by the intellect. That's why I'm going through this. So you have the intellect, and that composes your subtle body. Then the causal body, the Karan Sharir, is where that is called your subconscious mind. It's the bank, it's a bank of memories, of impressions, of past experiences. All of this is contained in your causal body or the subconscious mind, which retains all your actions from all lives, which is the karma, and all the impressions, the tendencies, the patterns that have built up, the habits that have built up, the phobias that have built up over lifetimes is contained in the subconscious mind as the vasanas. So that's your causal body. Now these three bodies, the gross body, the subtle body, and the causal body, what happens is that our ignorance causes this veil of separation, and we start identifying ourselves with these three levels of our existence, and that is called the agyan, the ignorance. And we think we are a separate entity, we are separate from the whole, we are separate from the oneness. That individuality, or the jeev, the jeev is another Sanskrit term you'll hear again and again. The jeev thinks it is separate, and the jeev, or the ignorance, associates you only with these three levels of existence. Beyond this veil of ignorance is your soul, is your consciousness, which is you, and it is always there, but we never operate from the soul level. We never operate from there. We usually operate from the subconscious, which is the cause of our actions, which cause certain impressions and so forth. So what the Gita is saying is that your karma, if you operate from the soul level, you will always be in accordance with dharma. So the soul will always be in sync with dharma, with the natural rhythms, or the natural order of existence. Okay, the soul is always in tune with it. It is the ignorance where we have free will. We do not choose. We can choose, and because we are unwise, we often choose the wrong action. So that is why I'm explaining this to you, is that the reason why I'm explaining this to you is that the whole point of Karma Yoga, what Krishnji is saying to Arjuna, is operate from your soul, live from your soul, live from that level of existence that you are. And when you do, your karma will be perfect. Let me give you an example. Like, dharma, you can see, I was telling you it's like science, but if you know about circadian rhythms, it is a natural rhythm in nature, where the body falls asleep at a certain time, it wakes up at a certain time, you need to eat at a certain time. So it's the rhythms of the sleep cycle, it's the rhythms of the eating cycle, and animals will never, they will never, they don't have free will, so they will never overeat or oversleep or undersleep. But human beings, they will oversleep or undersleep or not eat correctly or overeat. Now, when you live in accordance with the circadian rhythms, you will never have any consequences. You'll never have any repercussions. You'll never suffer from ill health. right? So these circadian rhythms, you can think of it as the law of nature, dharma, okay? And when you live in rhythm with this circadian rhythm, then you are following karma yoga. So that is, I wanted to use this example because, uh, it is very closest to how you can explain dharma and karma. So when you are in sync with dharma, then you will not accumulate any consequences. Um, so this is Karma Yoga, and all Krishnji is telling Arjun is you act from your soul level. Do not act from this disturbed mind. Do not act from impurities. Do not act from the body level like most of us do. We act from a lower level of existence. Okay? So that is what Karma Yoga is being explained here. Okay, so that is the Karma Yoga portion is to remove as many impurities and vasanas, impressions, tendencies, habits as much as possible to break the cycle. So what happens is, we usually act as a habit. We have this unconscious habit. A lot of us have phobias, a lot of us have these weaknesses or the body level, or we tend to react with anger, we tend to react in certain ways. These are all driven by our personality, which is these impressions, these habits, these patterns, that we have. So what happens is these patterns and habits and phobias, they drive our actions, or our desires are from these. Like, for example, if you have a desire, you're craving for sweets, it'll drive your actions. So the whole point of evolution as a human being is not to be driven by these limiting, misery causing impressions and habits and phobias, but what in Sanskrit terms it says vasana anusarik, means our actions are usually driven from vasanas, correct? But how to break the chain with awareness, consciously, using the Gita and Vedas and all these enlightened masters as a guide, and how to break this chain and cut the cycle of misery, and consciously and with awareness act from dharma, act from our soul, act according to the natural laws of nature, act according to values of love, of kindness, of compassion. So when you switch from acting from impressions and switch to acting from dharma, or you can think of it as values, universal human values, or according to the natural laws of nature, you break the cycle. You break these impurities. You will not react from anger. You will not act according to your tendencies or habits. Okay? So the whole Karma Yoga is the discipline, the mental discipline of acting from a higher level of existence. Okay, so that is all that Karma Yoga is, and what that does, it removes these impurities, it removes these negative thoughts, it removes these negative emotions, it removes all these things that I told you about, which are these impurities. It's in my second chapter, but basically the main thing is duality. We have duality in our mind. We have pleasure and pain and all these dualities that the mind suffers from. So you remove a large part of these impurities from Karma Yoga. Okay? So that is what Karma Yoga is about. So we are half an hour into the session, so I'm going to go to the second chapter. But next you can read in my book the other two things that we'll go into is in the Gita. Obviously, it starts with Karma Yoga, and from Karma Yoga, then it goes to Upasana, which is the chapter on meditation. Then it goes into Bhakti, which is devotion, and finally to Gyan Yoga. So this is the methodology it uses to slowly remove the impurities first, then to settle the mind, to purify our emotions, and then finally to gain a vision, a true vision of yourself. So this is the methodology that it follows. Okay? So if you have any questions, please ask me now, and then I'll dive into the second chapter. Is there any questions anybody has? I think people might be on mute.
This is Nana. I have one question.
Uh-huh.
You mentioned that like actions like anger and stuff, you need to control it and discipline it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the direction that Gita gives you.
Correct.
To act with your soul. But how about when it is a question of a bad health or a pain or something? Where does that fall into this? How do you control that part?
See, bad health can come from several things. Either it is some, unhealthy eating or that you have done yourself. Like if a person, not you, but if a person smokes, then, they have obviously given cause to that. The second could be environmental, like, there's pollution in the environment or in the water. So it could be caused from collective karma, the wrongdoing of a collective. And the third could be genetic, that you've inherited it. Some of this ill health actually comes from your karma, from previous lives. And I don't want to get too much into that, but because it's a huge topic. But that's why I never talked about it in the summary. So this ill health can come from one of these three things.
Yeah, but I was trying to get something from Gita in a sense that what can lead it to the kind of a peace of mind or whatever you call it out of that.
Yeah, the Gita doesn't speak necessarily about ill health. It deals more with the it won't talk about what is the cause of ill health. It talks more about don't get troubled by ill health, don't get disturbed by ill health, so don't get disturbed by disease and so forth. It doesn't go into the cause of the ill health, but I can tell you from my readings is that ill health can be caused by one of these three things, whether it's your own doing, but this is karma, this is your karma. Right now, what you have done, whether you have not eaten well or you smoke or something, it's your personal karma in this life, it's the collective karma of a group of people, or it's your karma that you might have done in a previous life.
Okay, thank you.
And I can talk to you separately about that, but it's a huge topic.
That's okay. I was just writing my notes and that kind of left me that question about it. Thank you.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Okay, any other questions? Okay, so let me bring up trying to bring up the second chapter. So we left off on chapter 2, verse number 40. Okay, and so I'm going to start with verse number 41, and I'm going to spend very little time on some of these verses because I really don't think that we need to spend that much time on them and concentrate more on the important verses. So verse number 41 to 46, I'm not going to delve into too much. You can read them on your own. Basically here it goes into, more into how the ritualistic part of the Vedas is really for the maintenance of the body and so forth. So in the Vedas, the first portion is a lot of the rituals of the fire ceremony and all these things. And a lot of us still do these pujas. But you see, what it's saying is that when you do pujas and havans and all these rituals and you ask for blessings and you need all of these, the grace of God or these higher beings is mainly for solving your bodily problems. It's for maintenance of the body or for blessings for your children, And Sri Krishna is saying that is that this is lower of your three requirements. That's not really the purpose of your life, you know. I mean, it's okay. It's not nothing wrong with that. But there's a very famous verse which if I've read Maharishi Mahesh Yogi's translation of the Gita, and he's very fond. He spent pages and pages on verse number 45. So if you like, you can read verse number 45, which is a favorite of Mahesh Yogi, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. And I'll just read it here. I'll just read the translation here for you quickly. It says the Vedas deal with the three gunas. The three gunas are the three attributes, which is Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva. So here Vedas, don't read it as the Vedas. What the Vedas means here is the ritualistic portion of the Vedas, which is the Karma Kand. The Brahmanas. So it is not the Vedas as a whole. What the Vedas refer to here is the ritualistic portion of the Vedas. So he's saying, you know, the Vedas deal with these three gunas. So what does he mean? It means that basically the rituals and the havans and all these things that we perform is is about the physical level. It's for the physical. The three gunas means we are consisted of the three gunas. It's dealing with getting prosperity or blessings or so forth for our physical existence. That's what it means, the three gunas. And so he's saying that, oh Arjun, you should rise above these three gunas. You know, you should rise above your physical existence. The maintenance of the body is important, but that is not the purpose of your life. Yes, you need to maintain the body, but the reason we are in the body is to evolve. So he's saying rise above these three gunas. He's saying rise above the body and mind. Know that you are the soul, you know. So that is what he's saying here. Rise above these three gunas and free yourself from the pairs of opposites. So the pairs of opposites is, you know, like cravings or aversions, pleasure or pain, happiness and unhappiness. All these opposites always deal with the body and mind only. So he's saying free yourself from the pairs of opposite and ever remain in sattva. So the sattva is the highest of the three gunas, and the best thing we can do to be closest to our true self is to remain in a very pure state. Sattva is the goodness or the purity. So that's what he's saying. Try to achieve that purity. Remain in the sattva, freed from yoga and kshema. Yoga and kshema here mean either we are worried about acquiring or maintaining. That's what yoga and kshema here mean. Most of our life goes into either acquiring something or sustaining what we have. Okay? And be established in the self. So that's what he's saying. Basically, be established in your soul. You know, that is the key. When you operate from yourself and you operate from the soul, everything else flows. And that is the whole point of scripture, of spirituality, is to be established in the self. And that is the key. So that's verse number 45. And then verse number 46 also goes into some of the same thing, is that the Brahmanas, you know, the Brahmana who has known the self, and all the Vedas are basically, verse number 46 is talking about a person, a realized person, a person who has known himself, which is a Brahmin who knows his true self. He has no need for all these ritualistic portion, because he knows that he is everything. When you have knowledge that you are this eternal being, this infinite being, you don't feel there is a need to do all these rituals, you know, to ask for good health, to ask for prosperity, to ask for good relationships, because that is all available to him. He has everything available to him. So that is what verse number 46 is saying. Let's see. Now, verse number 47 becomes sort of the most famous verse of Karma Yoga. So you might want to make a note of this verse. It's a very famous verse from the Gita. So anytime you want to describe what is Karma Yoga in one verse, this is the verse you can use, and which is basically, I'll just read the translation. So here verse number 47 says, your right is to work only, but never to its fruits. Do not let the fruit of action be your motive, nor let your attachment be to inaction. So this is the key. The first sentence, your right is to work only, but never to its fruits. This means that do your 100%, but do not be attached to the results. Don't be driven by the results. So it's like, when you run a race 100%, but you don't care about the results. So even if you come second, it doesn't matter. You did your 100%, you came in second, it doesn't matter. You can't do anything more than 100%, right? So, when we look at life, whether it's at work, okay, so you're doing 100% at work, but somebody else gets a promotion. If you have done your best, you have dealt with people nicely, you've been a good team member, you have achieved whatever you can achieve personally, and if you don't get a promotion, you should not be upset or get swayed by emotions. You should, if you have a clear conscience, it should not affect you. You should not suffer from the results. A person whose conscience is clear and who has done to the best of their ability will never get disturbed by the result. Okay? Because it is not something which is in your control anyway. So whatever result comes, that you can say is the result that nature has given you, or your destiny has given you, or God has given you. And to accept whatever result comes, whether it's success or failure, with evenness of mind. Don't be disturbed by that. Make sure that you do your 100%. Okay? So that is why it says, don't think that, okay, anyway, the result is not in my hands, so why should I do anything? That's not what this is saying. So that is why it's saying, don't be attached to inaction. Nor should you be attached to the fruit of action. So this is a very scientific way, or like if you read philosophy, philosophers always talk from both sides of the argument. This is logic. When you speak in logical terms, you defend both sides of the argument. So that is why the second sentence says, do not let the fruit of action be your motive, nor should you be attached to inaction. So neither should you be driven by the results of your action, nor should you be attached to inaction. So you do your 100%, but let go of the result. That is basically what this verse is saying. Okay? So this is the crux of Karma Yoga. Okay? This is the crux. So like I said, whether it's work or, even in relationships, a lot of times, you are judged for what you are. People have opinions about you. You have relationship issues with your relatives, But as long as you do your best in a relationship where, you are not, you don't have judgment of other people, you are loving, your heart is clear, your mind is calm, you're not angry, you're not whatever, your relationship with the other person, you have done your best from a good heart, from a clear mind. If that person doesn't reciprocate to you, if that person judges you, or if you have relationship issues with that person, you should not be disturbed by that. That is what it's saying. That you do your best, but don't be attached to the result, because what you do is your karma. How they react is their karma. Or how people treat you is their karma, but how you react is your karma. So you only have the right to your karma, okay? But never to the karma of others, or never to the result of your actions. This is the key. that you must keep the focus on yourself and what you are doing. And that is your wealth. The wealth that you carry with you is the purity of your actions, is the clear, if you die with a clear conscience, that is the wealth that you have accumulated. Okay, so that now these verses from here till verse number 60 all are kind of the Bible of Karma Yoga, and this is the crux of it. The verse that I just read to you is the whole summary of the Karma Yoga that it goes into in much more detail. So, for 48 also talks about that. It talks about how now, the next few verses, it talks about how we must work from a very even mind. Okay? So, I was telling you that when you act from your soul, when you do that, you will obviously have perfection in action, or perfection in at least in intentions. So this verse and the successive verses talks about how you should act from a calm mind, from an evenness of mind, whether you have success or failure, it doesn't matter, you should not act from attachment. So when you have calmness of mind, then proper action will come. So if you are disturbed mind, it's obviously, when you are disturbed, sometimes, we are tired, right? And we tend to react. We lose our awareness, right? So essentially Karma Yoga is when you act from awareness, when you can maintain your awareness, then your intellect is clear, means you are wise, you act wisely. Okay? So these verses talk about, I was telling you about this levels of existence, right? How your senses, and then you have your minds, your thoughts and feelings, and then you have the intellect. Okay? Now a pure intellect is what is called wisdom, being wise, making wise choices. That means it's a purified intellect. It means you choose wisely. So what Krishnji is saying here is that when you maintain your awareness, maintaining your awareness is the best way I can tell you is when you're operating from a much deeper level. You're operating from your soul level. Okay? So when you're operating from that awareness and you're conscious of that, then when you operate from awareness, then you can make wise choices. Wise choices means you act from the intellect, a purified intellect. Now if you can maintain that, then the intellect is superior to the mind. Okay? So in our levels of existence, whatever is higher controls the lower. So the soul controls the intellect controls the mind. So when you operate from the soul's awareness, then you can have then only then will you have wisdom. When you have wisdom, then you can overrule the mind. Okay, remember this. This is a very important point. So when you look at the battlefield, you see this Krishnji is driving the chariot and Arjun is sitting at the back, and you have the horses in the front, and and he's holding the horses with a rein, and they're sitting on the chariot. So these levels of existence, what I talked about, is all portrayed in this vision, this picture of the chariot. So it's an easy way to remember. So the battlefield is the world. You can think of it, the world or your life is this battlefield, right? And you're drawn into this battlefield. Now into this world runs the horses. The horses represent your outer senses, which go outward. They run outward. Now these horses or these senses can run wild unless you have the reins, the perception. The mind's perception or thoughts are the reins. Now the reins are held by Sri Krishna. Sri Krishna represents wisdom or the purified intellect. Okay? Arjun is sitting at the back. So he represents the individual ego, okay, that needs to learn from wisdom. So Arjun represents the individual soul, or the ignorance, the separation, the attachments to the lower self. That is Arjun. And the chariot chariot is the body, the physical body, with the four wheels, is the four limbs. So in modern terms, you can think of it as a car. The wisdom, if the wisdom is sitting at on the driver's seat, and Arjun is on the back seat, you can think of it like that, because we don't have chariots anymore. But now these verses are talking about how the evenness of mind should control, the evenness of mind, or the calm mind. You can only achieve a calm mind if you have wisdom, if when the intellect overrules the mind. So as a homework for this week, I really want you to focus on or reflect on these verses of the Gita. I'm not gonna be able to finish chapter 2 here, because I spent a lot of time in the summary. Maybe we can finish it the next time, but at least we can finish the Karma Yoga part. But I want you to focus on reflecting on this aspect. So throughout the week, whenever you get irritated or you react, or you notice some things that you don't that are limiting you, or that you want to get rid of, notice that comes from a disturbed mind. Okay, that anger, or jealousy, or greed, or any habits you have, or any phobias that you have, they cause a disturbed mind. Now, as soon as the awareness and the wisdom kicks in, it overrules the mind. It breaks the chain. So that is why I said, the way to break the chain of the vasanas, from being driven by vasanas, is to use the intellect, is to use wisdom, is to go to your soul level, to your awareness. And as soon as you become aware, you can break that chain, you can break that habit. So, read these verses and ponder on it. Remove doubts. If you don't understand them, you can ask me questions and we can discuss it, or you can contact me separately and we can discuss it. But during the week, focus on this chain reaction that happens, and how this chain reaction you can stop by using your inner intellect. The intellect will overrule the mind. And as soon as the awareness kicks in, this cycle is broken. Okay? So all these verses you can read on your own. I don't need to go into it, but that is basically what all these verses talk about, from here up till I think it's verse number 60, that talks about Karma Yoga. Okay? I think we have 5 minutes left, but if you don't have any questions, I can talk in more detail. But if you have questions, I really want to address them here. It's very deep. It'll take a lot of studying and a lot of reflection also.
Vinita ji, Venkat.
Yeah, hi.
Could you expand a bit more about soul level awareness?
So, awareness is the best way I can describe to all of you when you know that you're operating from your soul level. So, it's because it's transcendental. You cannot say soul is very transcendental. So, you will not know, okay, how do I operate from a soul level? But the easiest way I can explain it is when you are aware, when you're aware of your thoughts, when you can observe your thoughts, that means you're operating from higher than your thoughts. When you observe your intellect, when you observe, I judge this right and wrong, when you observe your logic, that observer is your soul. It's the witness. So that is a space of awareness. So that is the best way I can tell you when you're operating from your soul level.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anybody on the phone? Any particular, have any of you read the Gita or the second chapter, or have any questions on something that you read? How many of you have read the second chapter? Let me ask you that. Anybody read the verses yet of the second chapter?
Not yet.
No, okay. So
Halfway. It's too long, so it's the halfway, so it's very heavy.
it's very heavy, yes. So what you can do is you can just read the verses, and if you have questions then you can ask me. But I've basically summarized this for you, so when you think of the summary, and you can do a playback of the session, but when you hear the summarization that I've given you, it'll give you an overall understanding of what these verses are talking about. So the thing is, because you need to reflect on it. You won't just get it just by reading these verses. So, so when you reflect on these verses, and when you reflect on what I'm saying to you, then you will understand what it's telling you. So read it. You can read the chapter. The chapter that I've written. You can read it, and then you can reflect on it. Okay. These are very famous verses on the Karma Yoga, so you can do that. But I'm sorry, I'll have to spend another session on the second chapter, because I really want you to get this down. If you don't get this down, you will not understand the rest of the Gita. And if you get the second chapter, you will get the rest of the Gita very easily. So just read the verses for next time. Just go through the verses. Even if you can't read the commentary, just read the verses at least. And
Sorry, go ahead.
yeah. No, Seema, go ahead.
I was going to say, what is the guidance from Gita on increasing our awareness? We do a lot of things, but is there a specific guidance from Gita on how to always be, or mostly operate from the state of higher awareness?
Yeah, it is basically the intention. So it has to be a discipline. So that is why, the discipline has to be built in, whether it's through meditation, through reflection, but it has to become a practice. And the more you practice, the more it accelerates. So the practice is that you read the wisdom. So Shravan, you listen to this guidance that is given to you. Second is you reflect on it. You have to invest in it. You have to make it your own. It's not that you spend 1 hour like listening to the Gita and then it's out. You forget about it. That's why I said, you spend this week and you observe the times where you have not acted from evenness of mind, where your mind has been disturbed. And as soon as you observe that, now you have risen above the mind. Now you have risen to the intellect. Or you can tell the mind, using your intellect, using your wisdom, you choose accordingly. You make the wise choice. You build in this awareness. You observe yourself. You observe your thoughts. You observe your intellect. So it has to become a practice. It has to become, that's what Krishnji is telling Arjun, make this your practice. Practice this. Work from the level of wisdom. Be steady in wisdom. Act from the self. Be steadfast in knowledge. Be established in the self. So every single verse he's telling that, so that it becomes a practice. Practice makes perfect.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Well, I'm sorry I couldn't go into much detail of the second chapter, but you can read these verses and you can read my second chapter, and the point is that, you must understand it simply. If you get into too much of this philosophy and so much detail, you will not get the gist of it. So that is why I'm trying to give you the gist of it, so you understand and you can make it your own and practice it, on a day-to-day basis. And you have to start with the intention that you want to change your life from suffering and misery, and you want to move towards bliss. You want to go past happiness and unhappiness and this cycle going round and round and round, on this wheel, and that you want to break this cycle. If you make that intention, make a very strong intention, then this knowledge will get incorporated into your life. And so for me also, it was every day reflecting on it, every day breaking this cycle, every day incorporating this wisdom. It has to become your own. Yeah? All right. So, Seema, I'm okay if people want to contact me via, email or something. They're welcome to ask me a question or something, because it may come up during the week. I'm open to that. And make notes during the week for yourself. Keep a journal or something that you observe yourself throughout the week. That would be your homework. And then we'll meet next week and we'll finish the second chapter, hopefully quickly. The last part of the second chapter is about the perfected one, the one, the enlightened person, or the person who's established in wisdom, the one who's gone beyond duality. That's the last part of the second chapter. We've gone a little bit over, but we started late. So...
Sounds great. So your email address is in that chain, but I'm happy to send it around so that if anybody has a question, they can reach out to you, and maybe we can create a WhatsApp group as well if needed.
Yeah. And
the idea is to communicate and clear all the barriers in the mind, so that I think that's why I'm doing Bhagavad Gita, to really become established in the self.
Okay, I hope you guys got something out of it, this session. And I will ask you how your week went next week. Take care.
Sounds good. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Bye.